So welcome everybody to a little bit of an investigative kind of a video where we're going to be basically asking the question, can electric cars be fun to race online? I'm asking this question for two reasons. One, basically there's not really been that many people that I've seen race these things online racing, so I'm really kind of curious as to why that is the case. And yeah, secondly, we've got a massive influx of electric cars added to this game. There weren't that many in the base game. I think there was the Rimac, the Lotus Evija and the Porsche Taycan Turbo S. But obviously we've had more since then. We've had the Neo EP9, we've had this Xpeng P7, and we've also got the Audi e-tron that is coming on this game as well. It's currently a festival playlist reward, but it's the main season, well it's the second, well, yeah, it's the first main season reward, so you have to get 80 points, and you can't get 80 points right from the off in the first season. So yeah, you have to accumulate that over the course of at least 2 seasons. So yeah, we've still got that to look forward to. So yeah, I'm seeing whether or not these are fun to drive, whether or not they're actually competitive, and yeah, whether or not I find them fun, even whether or not I enjoy actually just driving them generally. In stock form I do, but yeah. Right, so yeah, basically we're going to look at this Xpeng P7 in A class, then we'll look at the Porsche Taycan Turbo S in S1 class, and then we'll look at the Neo EP9 in S2 class. Fortunately we haven't got any electric cars that are lower than A class. Even the Jaguar I-Pace is, you know, still high-end A class, so yeah, that's a bit of a shame, but and I would certainly like some more lower class electric cars. But let's see what this Xpeng P7 can do. Now granted, I'm not the best driver in the world. This is obviously, like all electric cars, got a lot of weight behind it, so yeah, they're not that competitive in that regard. They certainly do have a lot of power, and obviously all of the torque and horsepower is there quite quickly. I've changed this a fair bit. It's got fatter, wider tyres, it's got semi-slick tyres as well, it's slightly lighter, it's got far better brakes, it's got extra horsepower, so it's now got 530 I believe, and yeah, I've also changed the gearing around as well to give it a higher top speed, because it's normally only 119 miles an hour. Granted, that does slow it down on the acceleration front a little bit, but it does mean that, you know, you're not going to be losing out on positions or time by sticking at 119 miles an hour. So yeah, I do really rather like this car, upgraded or stock form. Really glad it's on the game. And yeah, I am hopeful that there will be more electric cars added to this game over the course of the rest of its life. So obviously we've still got one more expansion to come, which means we're still going to have plenty more added to the festival playlist. Hell, we've even got the 10th anniversary being celebrated in the next season, so got that to look forward to. So yeah, we've certainly had far more electric cars added to this game than in any previous game. The most common one previous to this was probably the Rimac in previous games. Obviously we also had a Tesla in one of the other games, and we also had some hybrids as well in the likes of Forza Motorsport 4. In that game we also had the Nissan Leaf in that game as well. But yeah, we've not really had many electric cars in, of course, all the Forza games. Obviously electric cars in the mainstream have only really been around for the last 10 years or so, but still, obviously they're becoming more and more common, and that is only a good thing really. So yeah, 8th place there, not particularly great. We didn't really able to push through the pack there, but I have had a few podium positions with this car before. I think I got a 2nd place in one race, and I've got a few 3rd places as well, but yeah, it's not the most competitive purely because of how much it weighs. It's got plenty of power and plenty of torque, but it just, you know, weighs a little bit too much for something that has, you know, only 500 odd horsepower. So yeah, and for some reason we didn't even get any points for that. Yeah, it seems like online sometimes there's a little bit on the dodgy side. We've got a wheel spin, 20 grand out of that. Right, let's we've got another race coming up. we're going back to the main menu in terms of choosing cars, we can look at the stats of the vehicle a little bit before we start another race. But yeah, I still do really well enjoy these cars, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the Audi e-tron can do, especially in comparison to the Porsche Taycan, which it apparently shares a platform with. So yeah, that is one thing to really look forward to. Yeah, right, so we can look at the stats of this car. So yeah, 530 horsepower, 603 pounds-feet of torque. But yeah, as you can see, it still weighs 4,045 pounds, which is still quite a lot for that a car of that amount of power. Speed is on the down low purely because it doesn't take into account what you've tuned it to, but as you can see, the handling, acceleration, launch and the braking are all fairly good. So yeah, it's only really the weight that is letting it down. It even has a pretty decent weight balance of 49% at the front and 51% at the rear. So yeah, let's see what we can do in these 3 races, and then we'll take a look at the Porsche Taycan. See what we can do in a bit more of the this championship, more at the start than at the end of that last one, because we only had really the one race, and we've got a smaller pack to deal with now. So hopefully we are able to take advantage of the fewer competitors, because it's a little bit less busy in that regard. So yeah, the launch isn't quite as great as it would normally be as well, because of how I've had to gear it to make the speed better. It's still far from the fastest car at the top end. It will only do about 182. But it's still pretty quick for something that's only got 530 horsepower. We're ahead of the Aston Martin. Watch out, my bum shake. One good thing about this car is it's able to pretty much hold its speed for any corner, no matter how much pressure you're putting it under or how much understeer is getting going on. It does have a fair bit of understeer, unfortunately, which is what the Aston Martin is taking advantage of. Bit of an accident. Speed. It's really good at getting out of the corners as well. So you don't have to deal with the launch aspect of this car. Oh, a bit of understeer there. Yeah, I think the e-tron actually revs even higher with its electric motors than this. I've tried it out on the lap thing that you have to do on the festival playlist. Do a hot lap on one of those. And yeah, it seems to rev higher than this. One good thing about having the amount of weight that this does have behind it though is that road furniture really isn't going to be impacting it. Come on, gain on the Audi. Don't quite have the power of the Audi, no doubt. Or it weighs a lot less than we do, so that's why it's stronger than we are. But still, we went last. Kept ahead of the Aston Martin, which is, you know, at the end of the day, a sports car. So to keep ahead of that is pretty good, and yeah, by 2 seconds on the nose, which is pretty good. And we weren't all that far behind the Audi either. So yeah, does seem to be just purely the weight that holds this car back, which is pretty much the case for all electric cars due to the thousands of batteries that they have to have, and the fact that they also effectively have 2 motors, you know, usually powering the front wheels and the rear wheels. Hell, some electric cars have 4 motors for 1 wheel each. I think the Rimac and the Lotus Evija have that. So yeah, definitely are weight concerns when it comes to electric cars, but everything else seems to be pretty on the nose. You know, it's not uncommon for a saloon car like this to have understeer, and this does have that, and it's going against it, but yeah, everything else seems to be on the nose really, and yeah, I'm really impressed by how this performs, considering, you know, it's not got the maximum amount of power you can give it. You can give it even more power than we've got it now. I think it gets up to 637 or thereabouts, so yeah, but it's all about a compromise when it comes to these kind of things. You could give it more power, but then you'd have to compromise on the handling or the weight or anything like that, so yeah, it's all about coming down on the right side of things, and I have tuned this a little bit, trying to fettle it, trying to get it as good as possible in terms of acceleration while still keeping it having a high rate of speed, because obviously you can make this go to 0 to 60 in less than 4 seconds and the like, but then you're having to have it at, you know, 130, 140 miles an hour in terms of its top end speed, whereas right now we're I think 4.1 seconds to 60 or something like that, but we have a top speed of 182, so yeah, it's all about compromise, but I feel like I've got it on the level as it is right now, but obviously there are more things you could do, you know, change camber, change the pressure on the tyres and the like, but for now I'm pretty happy with how this is. So yeah, we've got another competitor now. We've got the Lotus Elise from 1999, a car that probably weighs less than half of what we do, so yeah. As you can see, even just on this straight, we would have been lagging behind, staying at the kind of top speed this car has originally. There's no reason why to upgrade it in that regard. The good thing about this car is that it weighs quite so much that it's not easily bullied out of the way. Tiny knife on that bit then. Yeah, I think this Xpeng is definitely a fun car to drive. Got its issues, granted, and it's not going to be the most competitive vehicle all of the time. Which, you know, if you take these kind of races extremely seriously, then that might not float your boat. But I don't take these races seriously at all. I like going for the underdog kind of car. It means that then when it comes to whether or not you're going to win or not, like, it's surprising, you know. I drive the Oldsmobile Tornado a lot in B class. And that's still front wheel drive, and yet it has nearly 700 horsepower, it's got a hell of a lot of torque, and it still weighs a fair bit as well. So, you know, when you come win a race in that, or come podium position in that, it's, you know, more satisfying in that regard when you know, get a good position in that kind of vehicle. And it's the same with this. Don't expect it to win at all, but, you know, if I can come third place like then I'm happy with that. You know, it's a surprise, and it's a, you know, it's not a, you know, a car that is guaranteed to win, and therefore, you know, it's also a little bit of a challenge to drive as well. So yeah, I'm always in the favour of driving the underdog vehicles, quite frankly. Guess not everyone likes that kind of thing, because like I said, they might take these races kind of seriously, but at the end of the day it's only a game. I only really get annoyed when, you know, someone's properly cheating or anything like that. If everyone's still driving fairly nicely and not trying to ram people off the road or anything like that, then yeah, I'm not bothered if I come first or last, as long as I've had a fun race. And yeah, this Xpeng has pretty much fulfilled that. So yeah, let's do this final race to see if it can seal that deal, and then we'll move on to the Porsche Taycan, which has even more power. It's got 977 horsepower and even more in the way of pounds-feet of torque, more than 1,000. So yeah, even though I think that weighs even more than this, it's an incredibly quick car. And I think we've given that the drift transmission as well, so it's got 4 gears instead of 2. And it's got properly high top speed as well, and more than 260. Can't keep up with me, Aston Martin. It's deceptively quick, obviously, as well, because you don't have engine noise, really. You've got a bit of a whine from the electric motors, but obviously not going to be as loud as, say, a normal combustion engine or anything like that, and yet it's properly quick, despite not having that noise. Aston Martin got me there. Cheeky bugger. Yeah, as you can see, no one else is in an electric car in these races. Granted, there's not that many in A-Class to choose from. There's only this and the I-Pace, so yeah, I can see why A-Class might not be full of them, but it's a little bit of a shame that they seem to be neglected. Hopefully that's going to be the case in the next races with the Taycan, or with the Neo. Now, granted, there is less I can do with the Neo in terms of upgrades. All I've done with that is widen the tyres, give it a race diff, and put the drift transmission into it. So not much at all, can't upgrade the power or anything like that, unfortunately. Which is a pretty common thing actually with electric cars, is that you can't really upgrade the power on a lot of them. Can't do it with the Avaya either, or the Rimac. Only 3 electric cars that can upgrade the power on here so far: the Taycan, the I-Pace, and this. The fact I'm in some big bulky saloon car that is electric and from a manufacturer you probably never heard of, and I'm keeping up with an Aston Martin that has had, you know, 80 years of heritage behind it. It's pretty ridiculous, really. That's why I like racing these kind of things. Well, not as high a position as before, but that's some far more corner-orientated track, so that is where we're weakest, is in the corners, and especially when it comes to ones that, you know, are quite tight, because we do have a bit of understeer, and obviously we do weigh a fair bit as well. We were keeping up with the Aston Martin, and we have held on to 3rd place with the championship points overall. So yeah, let's move on to S1 class. Or is it S2 class? S2 class, whichever one, and see what the Porsche Taycan Turbo S can do instead of this Xpeng P7. Right, so here we are with the Taycan. So we've got a few seconds to talk about this car, and as you can see, handling, speed, acceleration, launch and braking are all better than the Xpeng. It's no surprise, this is a whole PI class higher. And yeah, 977 horsepower, 1006 pounds-feet of torque. And it does actually weigh less, 4003 pounds. I don't know why I thought it weighed heavier. So yeah, 42 pounds less than the Xpeng while having, you know, nearly twice the power. So yeah, hugely powerful car, no doubt about that. But will it be able to handle the power? Will it be competitive against the other vehicles? Or will it be as fun to drive? Who knows? But let's see. And yeah, I do typically like my slower cars, to be honest, in terms of racing, which is why the Xpeng has been the one that I've driven the most out of any electric car when it comes to racing. Just because I prefer lower class vehicles than higher class. A class and B class are usually my favourites. So yeah. But let's see what this can do against its other rivals. Now, in terms of top speed, it's not going to really worry about that at all. Launch is obviously better than the Xpeng as well, so it's not got that to worry about. It's just purely about whether or not the handling will be able to meet the power and the speed and the acceleration. Because it's all well and good being able to go quick in a straight line, but it's about whether or not you can use that power when the road gets twisty, which it is like now. So yeah, we might well struggle a fair bit on this race, because yeah, that's a pretty small circuit and really much in the way of straights either, so yeah, might be a bit of a struggle, but hopefully it will still be fun. So let's find out. Stupidly quick off the line. Oh dear, struggling a little bit there. Lots of understeer. We're not in last though. We are struggling to keep up with the lead pack. Yeah, this is one thing I'm curious about, what the Audi e-tron is going to be like to drive, because typically Audi's quite are understeering in terms of their handling characteristics, but obviously now without a big, you know, V8 or V10 or whatever up front, is that going to be the case with the e-tron? We'll have to see. I didn't find that it was particularly understeered when doing the hot lapping. Guess we'll have to see when it comes to properly racing. We are struggling on such a small and narrow circuit like this. Not a small... oh dear. That was a wall collision that was against me. It wasn't gaining any, you know, time there, so that's why I hate the wall collision detector at times. It seems to punish you regardless of the context, which isn't right at all, because you know, that wall collision there was not in my favour in the slightest. It slowed me right down. So why slow me down further by limiting my speed? Makes no sense. So yeah, on that kind of circuit, this kind of car isn't particularly great. Not awful to drive, but yeah, it's definitely a challenge. And yeah, the lack of, you know, real breathing room in terms of the circuit there is, yeah, smothered us, quite frankly. So yeah, not great at all. Not the slowest lap time though. Yeah, not last place either, but yeah, definitely will perform better on a more wider, more, you know, straight orientated circuit than the likes of that. So yeah, as per usual though, that just comes down to certain cars working on certain tracks. It's just the way it is sometimes. Some cars are suited to, you know, a wide variety of tracks, some cars are more suited to a certain amount of tracks. Just can't be helped really, that is all. So yeah. hopefully this next one will be a bit more advantageous towards us, like it was advantageous towards those 4 cars that were in front of us in that race there. Yeah, I do think the Audi e-tron looks better than this Taycan, so already the Audi has one up on this Porsche. Is this a point-to-point? I think it is. Yes, it is. Even though it's quite twisty, I think a point-to-point will work better than that tight circuit, so hopefully we'll do well here. Come on. Takes its time connecting with everyone, I feel. Come on. I don't know why it takes as long. There we go. Go! Oh! Certainly got the launch and the initial acceleration over everyone else. Yeah, cornering not our strong suit there, as you can see. Oh dear, that went disastrously wrong. Wasn't the only one, but still. Oh dear, rocks. Yeah, this car has understeer issues, no doubt about that. Just don't feel like the car is able to deal with the amount of power that we've given it, because it only had about 700-ish stock. Now we've given it, you know, more than nearly 1,000 in fact. Granted, I haven't driven this all that much in this upgraded form, and it probably could definitely deal with some fine-tuning. Unfortunately, this car, when it comes to electric cars anyway, when it comes to upgrading the amount of power and torque that you can get, is pretty much set in stone. So you can only upgrade this from its stock power right up until this power. You can't. There's no middle ground or anything like that. The Xpeng, at least you can, you know, choose between the 530 version and the 1600 version. But with this, it's pretty much all or nothing, unfortunately. Hopefully that's not the case with the Audi, but I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't. Well, we're only going to be in last this time. This is a very unruly car in terms of its understeer. It's a perfectly good car in stock form, but yeah, when you're dealing with these kind of speeds, it only could originally do about 170. It does seem to struggle a little bit, unfortunately. So yeah, last place there. Obviously, I'm not the best driver, so take that into consideration when it comes to, you know, deciding whether or not these are any fun to drive or not. But yeah, I'm definitely not liking the Taycan as much as the Xpeng, quite frankly. So yeah, I think we've got one more race with this car, and then we'll try out the Neo EP9. So let's see if we can do it a bit better on this third race. Hoping we can, because I definitely do like some aspects of this car. Acceleration and launch, for instance, are just ballistic. But it definitely feels like one of those cars that you fly down the straights and then have to gingerly get around the corners. But to be honest, it could also be me using this 4-speed drift transmission. I could also be playing havoc with the handling in some regards. Typically only had a 2-speed gearbox, so yeah, that could also be playing havoc, and this is a bit more towards the first race than the second race, so in terms of what we're racing on, so could struggle here again, to be honest. But let's find out. Let's not be too much of a downer on this car so far. At the end of the day though, you have to realise this is still a saloon car. Doesn't matter if it's got nearly 1,000 horsepower or not, it's still a saloon car, and everyone else we're up against is pretty much a supercar or a hypercar, so there is that as well. But holding on for so far, we're not as bad a position as last time. Come on, game. Compared to this, we're keeping up with a 911. It's hardly a slow car. And like with the X-Pen, we can just fly through any road furniture because we weigh so much. We're not last like last time. But yeah, that's only one small silver lining, quite frankly, given it's still 8th position. So yeah, Taycan's definitely a less fun car to drive in upgraded form over the X-Pen. So yeah, which is a little bit of a shame, given it's got more power, more torque, more speed, more acceleration, more better launch and the like, than you would expect it to be more fun. But still, we're in the top 5. So yeah, it does have that going for it, but yeah, definitely nowhere near as fun to drive as the X-Pen, and not quite as competitive either in this class. So yeah, let's move on to S1 class and see what the Neo EP9 is like. Right, we're in the Neo EP9. I'm not sure if we've just joined a championship in the middle of it or anything like that, but seems to be the case. So yeah, but regardless, this is the most powerful car that we've used on this video. So far the lightest, and yeah, it's definitely a more speed orientated, handling orientated car. Yeah, we've given it the drift transmission, but that hasn't improved the top speed at all. Still only 199 miles an hour, which is I think only about 4 miles an hour more. It's improved it a little bit, but nowhere near as drastically as say the Porsche Taycan, which has gone from 170 to about 260. So yeah, which is a bit of a shame. But the drift transmission has made the acceleration better, especially to 61.5 seconds dead, which is mightily impressive. And as you can see, it doesn't rev as high either as the Taycan or even the X-Pen. Only to nearly 9,500 or thereabouts. Neo have prioritises just initial acceleration and getting to that top speed as quickly as possible, regardless of how high of top speed it is or anything like that. Yeah, the handling and braking on this is far superior. And it means you can use all of that power pretty much. No idea where first place has gotten to, but I might well get into second. Flies out of the corners because of that initial acceleration. Oh, we are in first place. Did not realise. Wondering why first place has gone, and they're right behind us. Little bit of understeer on those tighter corners. Makes up for it on these sweeping ones. Helps when someone slams into you, but regardless, it's still the best position we've had in any of these electric cars so far, and we did hold first place for quite some time, so I'm not annoyed by that at all, because yeah, the Neo showed there that it had great handling, braking, really good acceleration out of the corners. Just maybe the acceleration once you hit 160, 170 miles an hour is a little bit too slow, because a normal combustion engine will pretty much keep accelerating right up to its top speed, so yeah. We do slow down a bit once we get up to that kind of rate of speed, but that's purely because of the amount of downforce and the fact it's not the highest revving electric motors going there. So yeah, they're the primary reasons why top end speed isn't quite as great. So yeah, we'll try out another few races. I know this has been a little bit of a long video, but I'm enjoying doing this kind of thing, to be honest, seeing what certain cars can do. Right, so yeah, that means we can also look at the stats on this car as well before we hit the next race. So yeah, let's see what it's capable of. We've got 2 point-to-points and a lap race. So yeah, this is the stats. So yeah, as you can see, the top speed isn't particularly great, but the handling, acceleration, launch and braking are all excellent. And yeah, 1341 horsepower, 1091 pound-feet of torque. But as you can see, obviously we've not been able to majorly upgrade this in terms of its losing weight or anything like that, but it's only about 140 pounds or so less than the Taycan, which, considering this is obviously a hypercar, it's only a two-door, not a saloon or anything like that, it's pretty impressive in terms of how much weight you can cut out of that Taycan when you upgrade it, to be honest. So yeah, is it a great shame that that you can't upgrade this further? But then I feel like it would probably move into X class and you wouldn't be able to use it regardless. So yeah, probably that is the reason why you can't upgrade it as much as you get kind of in normal cars. Because at the end of the day, it is quite excellent even in stock form. Handling and braking is just as good as it is now, and yeah, all that's really different is the acceleration. So yeah. Right, see what we do on an open point-to-point race. So we've got an F40, a KTM and a Pagani Huayra. All very good cars, so let's see what this can do in comparison. Don't screw it up, that's the main thing. Come on, connect. three of us are at the same PI. It's a Ferrari that's slightly lower, but that might just be because if you put it any higher, it might have been a worse handling car. So sometimes not fully upgrading is the best way to go. Got the launch and acceleration. As you can see, we're slowing right down now in terms of gaining any more speed. Where the higher wire even is going to catch up. So it does have more top speed than me. Oh dear. Thought we'd have had better brakes there to make better use of the braking zone. Well, at least we're going to get second again. So there is that. Don't know why that wire is so laggy though. Yeah, it definitely seems to be that the extreme ends, you know, A-class electric cars are pretty fun to drive. Not overly competitive, but still competitive enough. Middle ground is a bit meh, especially with that Taycan. I don't know why it has so many handling issues, but then with this Neo, it's, you know, the far end of the extreme where it's super quick, super good in terms of handling, and therefore also superly competitive. So yeah, it seems like the middle ground is the worst place for electric cars, quite frankly. So yeah, obviously I'm going only with these three cars, and there might be other versions of other cars that will do even better than those good versions. But yeah, there's not very many middle ground electric cars on this game. Pretty sure an I-Pace or even an X-Peng put into you know, the class that the S1 class that the Taycan is in wouldn't be competitive, because you have nowhere near the power of that Taycan, and yeah, and every other electric car is in the same class as this, the Avaya and the Rimac. So yeah, hopefully the Audi will fill the place that the Taycan currently occupies and does a better job of being a fun car to drive in that class, because as it stands, yeah, it's only A-class or S2 class that are any fun with these cars. Although whether or not the Rimac and the Avaya are any good in this class, I don't know. Would be interesting to see that, because they are also way more powerful than this, by about 500 horsepower, so they do have the top end speed, especially when you give it the drift transmission. The lack of a top speed really does harm this. That's why I was so, you know, picky when it came to the top speed of the X-Peng, and I didn't want it to be too slow there where we get taken advantage of on the straights, but don't want it to be, you know, too slow off the line to make the use of its power either, so. But we're going to win there, just about. It was a little bit scrappy. I don't like to, you know, hit people unintentionally, but sometimes that's just the way it happens in the heat of the moment, so yeah. But still, just about got that first place position, which I'm fine with, so yeah. That Mercedes though was a bit too intentionally ramming. It was ramming into the back of me at one point and then tried to hit me again and then seemed to spear off into the wall at one point, so, you know, which I can't personally help. So yeah, we're dead level though, me and the KTM. He does seem to have the top end speed, whereas I seem to have the handling and the initial acceleration out the corner, so yeah. Could go either way with the next race, depending on, you know, the straights it has or not. Yeah. Either way, yeah, this Neo's been real fun to drive, even though I'm not typically a fan of these kind of fast cars in terms of racing them. I'm a fan of driving them out in the open world, doing my own thing, but when it comes to racing these, I don't always find them the most fun thing to drive. I would say I think the X-Peng is probably the more challenging vehicle to drive and therefore the little bit more fun, but this is still definitely fun in its own right, especially when it comes to the speed and the amount of speed you can actually hold through the corners and how late you can actually be on the brakes due to how good they are. Yeah, definitely this game definitely is, you know, spearheading electric cars on these kind of open world games as far as I'm concerned, because yeah, we've got several already and then we've got even more on the way, at least one more with the Audi, hopefully more after that. Still surprised we haven't had a Tesla. Not personally a fan of them, but still surprised that we haven't had one. I'd wholly expect one of those to be featured in the game in the future, but then again, there's other cars that I would also like that aren't electric and aren't modern that I would much prefer to have in this game. So, would I prefer the ones I actually want? Probably, yeah. But I'd also be a fan of having more of these electric cars as well. Hell, I'd be a fan of having some hybrids as well, or even lower end electric cars, you know, the more run of the day kind of stuff, like a Skoda Enyaq or something like that. That would be fun to have on one of these games, because we have plenty of the powerful electric stuff, but we don't have much of the more run of the mill, more everyday kind of things you'd expect to see on the road. So I'd like that kind of balance to be reintroduced, because obviously we have plenty of combustion engine cars that are more run-of-the-mill compared to, you know, the hypercars and the supercars, so only seems fair to have that be the case with these EVs. It seems like a more handling circuit, so top speed does not seem to be something that's going to come to the forefront here. Lots of understeer though, unfortunately. Definitely seems to be struggling on the more slower corners due to the lack of downforce. Just something we're going to have to take into account. Yep, figures it's the KTM behind us. Steer again. Only really seems to be that corner though, hopefully. Naughty. No way you didn't get a slowdown for that, surely. See what I mean? I get a wall slowdown from hitting a wall and slowing down completely on my own, and then also get the penalty after it, and then someone clearly bounces off the wall and doesn't get a penalty at all. So that's why I'm not a fan of the way it's been implemented. I think it can be a little bit, better in that regard. But as far as these electric cars go, yeah, huge fan of them. Really, really glad they're in the game. I really am glad that there's more coming, and hopefully there's even more after the Audi as well. So yeah, looking forward to reviewing the Audi once I eventually get my hands on it. But like I said, it is 80 points in the overall series, so yeah, and you can only really get 40, 45 in the first festival playlist, so definitely going to have to wait until the next one after the current one. But yeah, regardless, yeah, really enjoying these electric cars. Yeah, the Taycan's a little bit on the flawed side and not quite as competitive as I would like, or you'd expect for something with nearly 1,000 horsepower, but still, yeah, having fun with them, especially the Xpeng. Really glad that's in the game. Don't need that Mercedes, already got it, but yeah, having huge fun with them, and yeah, I really do recommend trying them out in races. They'll really surprise you in terms of what they can and can't do, and yeah, they're well worth getting if you can get your hands on them. Obviously some of these cars are festival playlist cars, so not probably going to be the easiest things to get if you've missed out on them or anything like that, but still, if you do have your hands on them already, I would highly recommend trying them out. So yeah, nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.